Hello and welcome back to Module 3 of the Canine Arthritis Management Owner Workshop. In this one, we're going to tackle chronic pain and the caregiver placebo, and also how you can identify the signs of arthritis early. So previously we've covered what is arthritis and what's the fuss. We've also looked at why has my dog got arthritis and what can I learn for the future. Today, how you can identify the signs and what is chronic pain and what is the caregiver placebo effect and how it affects me. So identifying the cases of arthritis early can be quite difficult. Most owners wait for signs of lameness. They wait for obvious musculoskeletal dysfunction. However, the signs of arthritis show themselves way earlier than this. This simple diagram shows elements of the dog's life that can change and show that there is a problem brewing. So, many cases of chronic pain initially present themselves with behavior change. Behavior change. Behaviors that were once the norm may disappear, or behaviors that have never been performed suddenly appear. Let me explain. If your dog has always slept on the sofa and starts choosing to sleep on the floor, that is a relevant change. Or if your dog was always very confident around other dogs, but starts becoming anxious and potentially even confrontational, that is a relevant change. Postural changes. As suggested in our first module, arthritis isn't just a disease of cartilage, it's not just a disease of the joint. It's a disease of the whole limb, the whole dog. If you were to suffer arthritis in your knee, you would weight shift. Your posture would change. And over time, this postural change will lead to muscular and physical appearance changes. A classic example would be your Labrador. A Labrador who has actually got painful hips. Over time, they have weight shifted forward into their forelimbs and they start to develop a muscular appearance around the front end, a mane, a thick neck, whilst their back end withers. These indicate there is weight shifting, and why would there be weight shifting? More than likely underlying pain and dysfunction. As you have postural changes and physical changes, then you start to see your capability and movement changes called gait changes. Waiting for them to show that they are in pain because they're off their back legs is too late. When they can't get up, it's too late. When they can't walk anymore, it's too late. We need to be attending to this disease a lot earlier, not waiting for it to reveal itself in late stages under the guise of just getting old. What I have to hammer home is the truth. With the pain of arthritis, they will exercise less. If those joints are not being used appropriately, they will seize. Movement starts to become unbearable, so they choose not to stand. The soft tissues start to fade, and they have not got the strength to stand. And at that point, there is only one option: euthanasia. We need to be challenging this disease much earlier in its course. Let us remember arthritis is painful, it causes chronic pain, and unfortunately it's a major cause of elective euthanasia in dogs. In humans, arthritis is not terminal. It is a disease that we manage. Unfortunately, in dogs, it is terminal because we are poor at identifying and managing it. It is a silent disease. Chronic pain in dogs is communicated visually rather than vocally. Now let's talk about signs that you as an owner might see and be able to relate to. The dog starts walking with an unusual gait. Instead of a fluid stride in a walk, in a trot, in a canter, they start to seem disjointed. They seem uncoordinated. They may become withdrawn. They once were part of the family and always in the thick of all the commotion, but they choose to take themselves away because they don't want to get bumped into, knocked over. They don't feel as strong on their legs. They might change the way that they sit or lie or how they sleep. You can see in this picture, the dog isn't bending its knees in an appropriate sit. To bend its knees is painful. So it's adapted the way that he sits to make it more comfortable. Because of the nature of the disease and the loss of the soft tissue structures around the joints and in the limbs, they start to lose balance, get a wobble on, maybe have a tremble, stumble, catch their toes, clip their toes, scuff their pads. These are all signs that the physical capability of that dog has changed for a reason. We might see behavioural changes. A once affectionate dog becomes more intolerant, is not so part of the family, isn't so pleasant to guests, avoids other dog contact, or might start resist handling. They might demonstrate their discomfort by licking or chewing, and this doesn't have to just be the joints involved. They might be licking an area away from the joint affected due to referred pain. They may sleep more or actually be unable to settle comfortably. And the posture that they employ when they're sleeping is one to maintain comfort. As you can see with this dog, there is a very, very big curve to his back, and his hind limbs are brought forward to relieve any discomfort in his back. I'm sure we can all relate to choosing ways to sit or lie that make us feel more comfortable. And changes in normal daily activities. As you can see, this dog has got a very low squat. He's having to lean very far forward. And you can imagine those back legs do not have the strength to support this posture for long. So why is it so hard to identify? Why do we see the bolted horse disease, i.e. the stable is closed? We see them when they're off their back legs. We see them when they cannot walk. Well, there are so many things that actually affect the clinical presentation of arthritis. Many daily variables, such as where the dog slept, whether they got cold overnight, how much exercise they'd done. The actual nature of acute versus chronic pain, with chronic pain being a lot harder to recognise because it's behavioural change, postural change, physical changes, often prior to capability or gait changes. Arthritis has a waxing and waning nature. The natural behaviour of this disease is to have inflammatory flares where they seem worse, and then they naturally resolve and go back to a baseline. This means that the signs can be intermittent, leaving the owner thinking, was there something there? No, I just imagined it. It's gone. It can't be a problem. Also, dogs have an amazing ability to cope. They are led much more by neurochemicals, so their ability to put away the pain whilst they run for the ball or play with other dogs or chase a toy within the house. We also have a difficulty in deciphering what is aging and what is pain. We also have our own busy lives to additionally consider, running the kids to the school, huge work agendas. And also many of us have to admit we're in denial. We do not want to see the clinical signs that our dogs are showing because it does show us that they're aging and we're coming to a different phase in our life with our best friend. So just looking at the many variables that can influence the clinical appearance of the disease, let's remember every case is like a snowflake. The disease is a progressive disease. We can have controlled chronic arthritis where they're in a good phase. Their mobility is good, their coping mechanisms are good, but then we can naturally move into an inflammatory flare phase where they suddenly deteriorate. They do have a limp. They do seem uncomfortable. They're less willing to exercise. Arthritis affects different joints. How many joints? Which joints? Will actually affect how they clinically present. Arthritis within the digits will look very different to arthritis in the spine. Body weight. As we know, this affects the progression and the appearance of clinical signs. An overweight Labrador is more likely to show signs of pain of arthritis than a slender older dog. The exercise chosen for that dog, the terrain, the quantity, the lifestyle of the dog in and outside of the home. If you have slippery decking, laminate floors, stairs to the front door, stairs down to the back garden. The choice of medication or supplements that dog is on at that time. The complementary therapies that the owner employs to make their dog more comfortable. External elements such as the weather, the individual personality of that dog, and whether they seem to cope with discomfort better than others. The owner observational skills. Some owners are very in tune to their dog and can notice slight personality changes, very subtle behavioural changes, where other owners might just put that down to normal behaviour. And we also have to remember chronic pain is an individual experience. So let's talk about chronic pain a little bit more. We all understand acute pain. This is pain when you touch a hot hob and you quickly recoil and move your hand away from the painful experience. It's generally transient, short-term, and it has a protective nature. It's useful. It means that we are not hurting ourselves, or if something is painful, we attend to it quickly. This is called good pain. Chronic pain is very different. Chronic pain is long-term, and it also extends beyond the period of tissue healing. So the problem may have gone, but the body still feels pain. We still do not know the true purpose of chronic pain, and this is why it's called maladaptive. It's a completely different physiological, pathological process, causing changes within the central nervous system. Currently, we feel that this is bad pain. So acute pain versus chronic pain and the individual response. We know that pain is not just about how it feels, but how it makes you feel. This can be demonstrated in these photos. Both these dogs are likely to have arthritis and both have been for hydrotherapy. The dog on the left seems to have enjoyed the experience. The dog on the right, not so sure. We know that a painful experience is often felt worse if we're not in a good place and time. Chronic pain is a lot more complicated. Chronic pain in humans is generally communicated verbally. We know this. Identifying someone with a mild to moderate bad back would be quite difficult because they generally still work, pick up the kids from school, cook the dinner. But it's only when they say, oh, actually, my back's really bad today. Chronic pain in dogs is communicated visually. Again, behaviour change, posture change, physical appearance changes, gait and capability changes. So just to put this into context, it's often good to look at what's happening in the human world. So the World Health Organization reports that 1 in 5 people suffer from moderate to severe chronic pain worldwide. Can you tell? Do 1 in 5 of your friends intermittently scream? Do 1 in 5 of your family members limp or stay immobile because they're in so much pain? Generally, no. When Cam has lectured and asked the people in front of them, who in this room suffers pain? Generally 3, 4, 5, up to 10 hands will be raised. But there's no other sign that that owner of that pain is feeling pain. It is expressed verbally. We have to consider this when we're trying to identify cases of arthritis earlier. We have to be aware that it doesn't present just as a limp, but often presents in subtle signs such as behavioural changes. Arthritis, as I say, has an intermittent and changing presentation, which leads the owner to be in confusion. Is there something there or not? Another thing we need to consider is this emotional component. All of us quickly slip into denial. No, it can't be that bad. It's very hard for vets to identify in practice because of the stressful nature of the environment and the dog's stoic nature and not wanting to show signs of discomfort. Because of this waxing and waning, difficult to identify nature, it can also be very hard to work out whether an intervention is working or not. We have to also bear in mind that dogs by nature cope. I know very well that my dog can endure quite large quantities of discomfort before showing signs. And one way that I feel you can illustrate that is if you don't know that there is a solution, a resolution to that pain, then you just get on and cope. We often overlook the power of the neurochemicals. So this is my sister's dog. And if you watch carefully, you can see she's actually lame. But that does not stop her wanting to play ball. That power of that ball, that obsession to the game, is meaning that she will work through discomfort. Also, we have to consider aging versus pain. What is acceptable aging, and when should we be alerted to it being potential pain? That video was something that Cam created to just highlight to people that as dogs age, they don't need to show signs of suffering. What we would like owners to do is to question behavioural change, posture change, capability, and gait changes, in case there is an underlying chronic pain nature that can be attended to. Our own busy lives can really interfere with us attending to things that we think might be there. I know that I often get tangented away from actually dealing with a situation because of other time pressures. And as mentioned before, many owners actually choose to not accept the signs that they see because of the nature of aging, meaning that they're at a different stage in their relationship with that dog. To make matters worse, we have to consider the caregiver placebo effect. So the placebo effect is claimed to be a real improvement in a patient's disease that is caused by inert treatment. So this is when an owner of a disease or a condition is given a product that has no therapeutic benefit, but that owner of that disease or that condition sees real improvement. And this shows that we have an amazing capability to self-heal. Now, dogs don't demonstrate the placebo effect because they don't know that you're giving them a treatment. However, we can succumb to the caregiver placebo effect, where there is a perceived improvement noted by the caregiver, the owner, when there is actually no clinical change. How common is it? It's very common. And the more involved the intervention, the more expensive the intervention, the more number of friends that have seen benefit, the more likely we, as the owner, as the caregiver, are to believe when implementing the intervention, we also see improvement. It's also known as placebo by proxy, and this is a very good paragraph from the Skep Vet. Unfortunately, animal owners and veterinarians are subject to being misled by non-specific treatment effects, the placebo by proxy effect, and it is quite potent. It creates an especially dangerous situation in which an animal's caretaker believes they are helping the patient, and the combination of cognitive errors and cognitive dissonance prevents them from appreciating that the animal's condition has not actually improved. This short video clip demonstrates this further.
The caregiver placebo effect is a really important effect in veterinary medicine. We see the caregiver placebo effect when we're asking owners about a subjective experience in their pet. So we see it certainly in the area of pain, and that's where that paper came out of. We can also see it in other behavioral conditions. And with the caregiver placebo effect, what we see is that owners interpret their pet as improved while they're taking a placebo. And in the strictest definition for the caregiver placebo effect, that is in the absence of improvement on an objective measure. So for example, if we used activity monitoring as our objective measure and we had a cat that was on a placebo and there was no improvement on the objective measure, no improvement in activity, but the owner said that the cat was better, we consider that a caregiver placebo effect. That's with the caveat, of course, that we could be missing something. The cat could be improved in mood or in grooming, and we don't pick that up with the activity monitor. But we do think that that is a caregiver effect, so that they're interpreting that behavior as improved, even though there is no improvement and the cat was on a placebo.
So the power of the placebo, the caregiver placebo effect. Let me just tell you about a trial. There was 58 dogs in the placebo arm of a clinical trial, and 57% of owners saw improvement, even though the actual therapeutic intervention was null. There was nothing. What was also scary was the vets in charge of the case, who were also blinded to the trial. 40 to 45% also saw improvement. When these dogs were objectively assessed through force plate analysis, there was actually very little change. So let us be aware that the caregiver placebo effect is a very big problem when trying to decide whether a dog has improved or not. Another short paragraph from the Skep Vet. But I believe it is unethical to employ therapies which are demonstrated to have only placebo effects, particularly when interventions that actually treat the underlying medical condition are available. And as a veterinarian, I am strongly opposed to using treatments that clearly work in humans only through belief and expectation, since these are very likely to mislead owners into believing the therapy is working without actually benefiting the patient. This is something that I've included because I want to demonstrate why the majority of vets struggle to advise regarding products and therapies that have very little evidence. We are not doing it because we don't want to help you. but our opinion is likely to be not what you want to hear. Many products that are available offering support and help to owners of dogs with arthritis have very little evidence of benefit. But they are very, very plagued by caregiver placebo. Vets try to practice evidence-based medicine where they use medicines, foods, supplements that have a strong evidence of effect. Because what none of us want to be doing is encouraging you, the owner, to purchase products that are very unlikely to be working. You as an owner do not benefit, and the dog certainly doesn't either. So how can we resolve this? We know that arthritis has a very different presentation, and it's affected by many, many variables, including the natural waxing and waning nature. And we also know that we really do succumb to the caregiver placebo effect. How can we prevent the both affecting our judgment? By becoming more objective in our assessments. On our website, there is a download for a chart that we hope will help you become more objective. We'll come back to that later. So module 3 is complete, and what is our summary? The signs of arthritis are normally more subtle than lameness and rarely come with vocalization. Chronic pain of arthritis presents through changes in behavior, posture, physical appearance and capabilities. An owner needs to look for visual signs of discomfort, which may be anxious, intolerance, or being distant. They may present with a change in gait, posture, or they might be unbalanced when they're walking. They may chew, lick, or focus on areas that are causing discomfort. Or they might just simply be less engaged and less active. There are numerous reasons why identifying the signs is very difficult, but any concern is best checked by a vet. The caregiver placebo effect and regression to the mean can really hamper our ability to assess if something is working, so we must learn to be more objective.